Welcome everyone to our call today, to our class. I'm excited because today you'll learn B2 level words for discussions, opinions, and debates in English. So let's get started on giving your opinion. I'm sure you know how to say, in my opinion. Let's talk about some other phrases. So you can say, from my perspective. Now, a lot of students I find know this, but they confuse in my opinion. Notice that preposition change from my perspective. So, as we're going through this lesson, feel free to share your opinion and practice using these words from my perspective. Now, also notice there's a comma here. From my perspective is a phrase that you add to a complete idea. So, to make sure you're using these words correctly, you can have your complete idea. Remote work has improved productivity more than most companies expected. So, that is your statement. Now, you can add, in my opinion, to the very beginning, or to sound more advanced, you can add from my perspective. From my perspective. Greetings. Hello, everyone. And I saw someone is calling in from sunny and hot Czech Republic, France as well. Amazing. Okay. So, in my opinion, from my perspective, and then you have whatever your perspective is. Do you agree with this? Remote work has improved productivity more than most companies expected. Well, you will learn some ways to agree with someone else's opinion and disagree with someone else's opinion. So if you know any words now to agree or disagree with someone's opinion, you can share them. How about this? In my view. Okay. So here, all you're doing is replacing the word opinion with the word view. Opinion to view. In my view, in my opinion, from my perspective. I wouldn't generally use that to introduce an opinion. It is possible depending on the context. And I do have some examples using consider, I believe. If not, we can talk more about that. Okay, greetings, everyone. Wow, all over the world. I love it. Oh, where are you from? Brazil. Welcome. Okay, let's keep going. In my view, and then again, you need your complete idea. When you're saying this in spoken English, I also recommend adding a pause after the comma because that's the purpose of a comma. So you don't want to say, in my view, social media has changed. In my view, social media has changed the way people communicate for better and for worse. Okay, so offering more of a balanced perspective for better, for worse. So there's pros and cons. In pros and cons. Have you heard of that? Pros and cons. Pros are the positives, the benefits. Cons are the negatives, the drawbacks. From my perspective, learning a new language can benefit our lives in many ways. Who agrees with this student? I certainly do. So say yes, yes, yes if you agree with this student's perspective. I 100% agree. Virginia, welcome. In my book? No, that's not one I'm familiar with. Perhaps there's an idiom that uses book, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. I agree. Amazing. Woohoo. Okay, let's keep going, everyone. So we have in my opinion, in my view, my perspective, from my perspective. This is a great one. Personally speaking, you can just use personally, personally speaking, because what is your opinion? It's your point of view, right? So personally means it's coming from you. So you can say, personally speaking, social media is a spying software. Why not? That's your opinion. I'm sure many would agree with that. And maybe some would disagree. And then you can have an interesting discussion. Personally speaking. Now, notice it's still very common to add I think, even though you use personally speaking. You don't need to use I think. You could just start with whatever the opinion is. Personally speaking, schools should spend more time teaching practical life skills. Or you can add I think. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I love it. I love wholeheartedly. That's a very strong, yes, I agree. I wholeheartedly. It's with your whole heart, but it's just an expression that means I 100% absolutely agree. Thank you for sharing that. So, what do you think? Do you agree with this opinion? How about this one? I tend. Okay, this is definitely a more advanced structure. It does complicate things, and you don't need to add complication. You can simply say, from my perspective, personally, in my opinion, that's fine. But you may be in a discussion when a native speaker uses this expression, and now you'll know what it means. I tend to agree with people who believe that technology makes our lives more convenient. So there are people who believe something. So this is the opinion of just people in general. Now, if you say, I tend to agree, this is interesting because you're stating it, but you're softening it. Because if you tend to agree, it means most of the time you agree, but some of the time you don't agree. So it is offering more of a balanced opinion. It's not saying I completely agree, it's reducing that. I tend to agree. Now, you don't have to use this sentence structure. You could say, I tend to think that social media has more positives than negatives. I tend to support the advancement of AI technology in the workplace, for example. So I tend to do something, and then the do can be an opinion. So notice tend is your verb, is conjugated in the present simple. And then you have your infinitive. You tend to do something. Thank you so much. Right back at you. It does include hesitation because if you tend to, it means sometimes you don't. So we use this a lot with our daily routines. You might say, I tend to have oatmeal for breakfast, just very, very simple. Or I tend to work out in the morning. But that means sometimes you don't have oatmeal for breakfast. Sometimes you don't work out in the morning. So it leaves room for the person to interpret that there are times when you don't do that. So in this case, the do would be believe that technology makes our lives more convenient. Oh, up to some extent, I agree. Very nice. So I agree, but then some extent means that there's a point where the agreement ends. So imagine if it's just a scale from 0 to 10, 10, and 10 is maximum agreement, 0 is minimum agreement. Well, then maybe to some extent is 8. There's some point where my agreement ends. A synonym of tend would be usually, regularly, often. Those would be synonyms. Good question. I believe exactly from my perspective, personally speaking, in my view. So, how many different ways can you rattle off, meaning say quickly? So, if you rattle something off, you might say, my boss rattled off a list of to dos. Well, your boss just said them very quickly, just like I rattled off many different ways to express your opinion. Oh, I lean towards. Okay, so right now I'm leaning. Now imagine that we have opinion A, opinion B, and I lean towards opinion A. It means that if I had to choose a side, I choose opinion A more so than opinion B. Very nice. Ah, very nice. I tend to say he is not strict with his students. Very nice. I believe we will all be better at English soon. Exactly. I agree with that. Let's keep going. Oh my goodness, I promise I did not know. I created this presentation yesterday, and that goes to show the importance of repetition because I created this example and yet I had no idea this was my next example. That's why it's so important to repeat information. Our brains were designed to forget information. You have to repeat to remember information. And this is a perfect example. I lean towards letting. So notice here, towards is a preposition. So you need grammatically a gerund verb. I lean towards letting employees work from home, assuming productivity isn't impacted. This is advanced. This might even be a more C1, C2 way of expressing because I included my opinion. I lean towards gerund verb, letting employees work from home. So you let someone do something. That's why work is in the base verb. But remember, let is your main verb conjugated after the preposition. So you need the gerund. I lean towards letting employees work from home, but now you're providing a contrast to your own opinion. You're saying there are certain occasions where you do this and you don't do this, assuming productivity isn't impacted. Yeah, you could also say providing that productivity isn't affected. That's fine. So, assuming you're making the assumption. So, you're saying if productivity isn't impacted meaning productivity goes down, the employees are producing less output, the number of client files they update decreases. So productivity is impacted. If productivity isn't impact, I lean towards letting employees work from home. So you could even start with an if clause, or you could just say assuming. You could start with that as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. Let's keep going. And it seems like everyone's enjoying this lesson. If you are, put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments. Like this lesson, it truly supports the channel, and subscribe so you're notified every time I go live, every time I have a new lesson. And so you're part of our community as well, because if you don't subscribe, you won't get the notifications. And remember, as always, I have a present for you. I have this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. So you can find the link to download it in the description, or just go to my website and it's right there, the first thing you see. And from my perspective, this is the best way to start because I tell you exactly what you should do first, second, third. And if you are truly committed to improving your fluency and you want my personal support, you can get that in my premium program, the Finally Fluent Academy. This program is designed to help you understand real English, native English speakers on TV, movies, the news, YouTube, and also to help you sound like one because you use the same words, you have the same pronunciation, and your grammar is correct as well. Let's keep going. And thank you so much for your support. Oh, all the way from Bogota. Thank you so much. Woohoo. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, let's keep going. Now, agreeing and supporting an idea. Well, you are learning with me right now. And if you want to learn more in depth with me, you can get that in the Finally Fluent Academy. So you can find the link in the description. So let's put an opinion in the comments. Who wants to put an opinion? And then we will find some words that you can use to agree or support that idea, that opinion. But then also, after, we'll put an opinion that you disagree with. So that will be exciting. Start thinking now about an opinion you can share that you think people will disagree with. Ooh, you're going to be a troublemaker. Okay. Here's one. In my mind, your classes help us improve. In my mind, your classes help us improve. Okay, we could say that if anyone has another opinion. Well, here we go. I do agree with you. I like how you added do. So, do is an intensifier because it's not grammatically required. You would just say, I agree with you. Now, I do agree with you. This is the emphatic present simple. Okay, here's an opinion. I tend to agree that English learning takes some time. I would reverse those and say I tend to agree that learning English takes some time. So there's a good one. In my opinion, you are the first-rate teacher in the world. Thank you so much. Okay. How about this? I think AI is good for nothing. Oh, that's a controversial opinion, maybe. I love it. We're on the same page. I do remember that I included this one in the lesson. Okay. You make a valid point. You can end it there. So let's try it. This is why people, please put some opinions in the comments. I tend to agree that learning English takes some time. You make a valid point. Now, you could go on and include about and then whatever the point was. You might, if this person literally just said it, you probably wouldn't repeat it. But if you're in a discussion and they're talking and then you want to summarize one specific thing, well, then you could use about and then identify the topic. You make a valid point about how long it takes to learn English or about the length of time truly learning a language requires. So think of, you don't have to use the exact same words. That's a fun exercise to test your fluency skills. So you make a valid point about something. But remember, you can just say, you make a valid point. So you can replace the word valid with many other things. You make a great point. You make an excellent point. You make an interesting point. I think AI is good for nothing. You make a valid point, Mirik. You make a valid point about AI. So you can just have the topic being very short, or you can expand the topic as well, or just not include the topic at all. Learning a new language is not a piece of cake. You make a valid point. You make a valid point. You could also say that's a valid point. That's a valid point. I like you make because it's giving the person credit and it perhaps makes them feel, oh, wow, Jennifer likes my point. So it just makes it a little more personal. Okay, how about this? Most of the committee members are on the same page about something. Now, about is a preposition. What follows next will, of course, be your gerund verb about reducing unnecessary expenses. So here, it sounds like you're summarizing a general opinion. You're not saying it's your opinion. Most of the committee members are on the same page. If you're on the same page, it means that you have the same idea. You have the same opinion. You agree on the plan, even. So we're on the same page. The committee members are on the same page. And then the topic is reducing unnecessary expenses. And then you use the preposition about. Exactly. They have the same opinion. Very nice. Let's keep going. His argument was backed up with powerful statistics. So this is an indirect way of saying you agree with some parts of the person's opinion or point. So his argument, in this case, argument is when you express your opinion in a convincing way. So when you were in school, you probably had an assignment where you had to debate with someone. Maybe that's what we do in North America always. Now, when you are assigned a topic and it's your job to argue that this topic is right or wrong. Okay. So that is argue when you present your idea, but in a way to convince and persuade. And I'm sharing that because the word argument, which is a noun, is also used in a completely different context. So, for example, hey, Jennifer, what's wrong? Oh, my husband and I had a stupid argument this morning over oatmeal. So, argument can be when two people, friends, colleagues, significant others, fight. Okay, but that's not what it means here. His argument was backed up with powerful statistics. So notice the argument is receiving to be backed up with. His argument is receiving it. It means that his argument had powerful statistics. His argument was supported by powerful statistics. So that's what to be backed up with means. So if you're preparing an argument and you ask a coworker to review it, your coworker might say, you should really back your opinion up with data. So you have your opinion, but without data or statistics, it doesn't seem as powerful. So add that information to support it more. We are all on the same page with Jennifer when it comes to academic learning. Well, thank you so much. I agree, or I appreciate that. And I agree. Maybe not the exact synonym would be highlight. I would say supported. So his argument was supported with statistics. So it's one thing if I say that repetition is extremely important to permanently remember information. So yes, you hear when I say it and you respect me. So you say, okay, that sounds good. But what if I said, Harvard University conducted an experiment that showed, that proved that students who repeated information every day for 5 days remember that information 80% more than the group of students who only repeated that information once per week. So now I shared my opinion, but I gave you support, and you will probably take what I said more seriously. So that's backed up with. Yeah, I guess strengthened is a great way of summarizing that. Let's keep going, everyone. Oh, Hamburg. Love right back to you. How about this? She has a point. She has a point. So you can end it there. So if someone says repetition, okay, here. I think keep sharing your opinions. I need them to teach this vocabulary. So keep sharing random opinions, whether they're controversial, you believe them, it does not matter. Just share some opinions. Okay. I think hard work beats talent. You have a point. You have a point. So this is similar. You make a valid point. So here I'm just using the verb have. You have a point. I would say you make a valid point sounds stronger. You have a point. This means what you're saying has truth in it. What you're saying has validity, has power. You have a point when you say that hard work beats talent. You have a point about the importance of hard work. So you can change what comes next. Notice in my example, she has a point when she says, so that's why I said when you say, because she says, you say, of course, when she says that public transportation should be more affordable, she has a point. Yes, please do. Thank you so much. Smash that like button. Thank you. Yeah, you could say she's right. She's right when she says. She has a point is just a very natural way of saying that. Native speakers use it a lot. And you can absolutely say that's a valid point. She has a valid point when she says. Good morning. Good morning. Let's keep going. That argument, you already know what argument means. That argument holds true. Holds true. In large organizations like ours. Okay, you could just end it at holds true. If you use this, holds true, it sounds like you've tested this, you've done some research, you've implemented whatever the opinion is, and then you're saying it is true even after we've tested it. So it's a lot stronger than saying that argument is true. The argument is true because you've taken the time to test it and to implement it. So if I say to you that it's very important for you to repeat what you learn every day for 5 days, 5 days later, you can say, Jennifer, that argument holds true. This entire week, I've repeated the phrases and now I remember them. But the phrases from last week that I didn't repeat, I don't remember them. So that argument holds true. No, not partially. Partially is like this. Holds true is completely. So that argument is true because I've tested it. I've tried it. Okay, so this is a very common one. Natives use it a lot, depending on the context. The context has to be that you've tested it and you've tried it. You have proof that it is true. That argument holds true in large organizations like ours. So, here, by adding in large organizations, you are saying that maybe that argument isn't true for all organizations. Maybe small organizations wouldn't benefit, but large organizations, I can say that is true because I've tested it. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh, I totally agree with your argument. I love that. Let's keep going to disagreeing and challenging ideas. Okay, share some opinions in the comments that we can use to disagree with or challenge them. This will be creative for you. How about this? Many experts take issue with the claim that artificial intelligence will replace all jobs. Okay, so here, the claim. This is what someone says as truth. Artificial intelligence will replace all jobs. Some claim. Some claim. So some state this is true, but it hasn't been proven as true. That's why they're using claim. Now, many experts take issue with. So if you take issue with something, it means that you don't agree with it or you have some sort of negative opinion about it. Yeah, this is powerful. I take issue with your argument. It means that I don't think that everything you said is true. I believe that there are parts of your argument that are not true, or I believe that something else is true. I want to object to that idea. You object to something. I want to object to that idea. If it was not for AI, I would not be able to attend this class now. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Let's keep going. This is a good one. I think that conclusion is flawed. So you can say, I think that argument is flawed. I think that opinion is flawed. So to be flawed means that there are problems with it. Something about it doesn't seem true or doesn't seem valid. Maybe the statistics you shared don't make sense or are very outdated or are from a very small sample size. Something about it isn't right. So I think that conclusion is flawed. So you don't have to use this with an entire argument or an entire opinion. You could even use it with just one part. You might even combine this with something positive. Jennifer, I think you have a valid point, but your example is flawed because it ignores several important factors. So you might agree with me overall, but then disagree with one part of my argument or my opinion. So something is flawed. To be flawed. You're describing the conclusion. So flawed is always in the ED form. Repeat after me. Flawed, odd, odd. And then your verb to be has to be conjugated. So if it were your arguments, I think your arguments are flawed. because it's plural, because it ignores several important factors. So you can go on and explain why, because, and then the reason why. Exactly. Something is wrong with it. Let's keep going. This is a great one. Contrary to popular belief, working longer hours does not always lead to better results. I really like this one. So we need an opinion. Working longer hours does not always lead to better results. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate that. So, working longer hours does not always lead to better results. But notice at the beginning, contrary to popular belief. This means popular belief means that the average person or most people believe something. They believe working longer leads to better results. Okay, so you have to turn it into the positive form to express the belief that most people have. So, what about you? Would you agree with that? Working longer leads to better results. But you're saying contrary to popular belief. So, you're saying most people believe this, but I don't. I don't. So this is a very common professional way of introducing an opinion when you want others to know that it is not what most people believe. Yeah, it's against that belief. Yeah, in contrast to, exactly. Contrary to popular belief. Oh, that's debatable. Yeah, 100%. And then we have that's debatable. I really like this. Nicely done. That's debatable. So let's just say you say some random thing as fact. AI is going to ruin the world. That's debatable. And you might say it with a little bit of doubt, skepticism. That's debatable. It means that there are many people who would debate that topic. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't agree, which is interesting. It just means there are many people who would disagree. Thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate that. Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's debatable, but I don't think it's a requirement, but also think about your tone and how you would deliver it. That's debatable. That's debatable. I don't know. That's debatable. I know what you mean, Alexander, with disputable. It would be more common to use debatable. So if you're only going to have one in your vocabulary, I recommend debatable. Dispute, similar, but it's not the exact meaning. Yeah, grimace. Mm. Okay. Remember, we're in the expressing something that's contrary to popular belief. So, a university degree does not necessarily guarantee career success. So, here you're taking a statement, but you're making it the opposite view. Because the positive would be a university degree guarantees career success. So let's say someone says this. Well, in my opinion, a university degree guarantees career success. Well, you can definitely say that's debatable. Or you could just say these two words, not necessarily, not necessarily. So you can use those two words, not necessarily, as a response to someone's opinion, or you can give the opinion and then add not necessarily. So does not necessarily guarantee, because does is the auxiliary verb for the negative not. Guarantee is your verb, of course. That's why in the positive, I said a university degree guarantees career success. A university degree doesn't guarantee career success. So that's making it 100% negative. When you add doesn't necessarily, you're saying it's possible, but not guaranteed. Let's keep going. Several researchers have challenged the findings of the original study. So if you challenge a conclusion, if you challenge an opinion, if you challenge a policy at work, you're saying that's not right, that's not correct, we shouldn't do it like that, we shouldn't think like that, we shouldn't accept it. So several researchers have challenged. It's in the present perfect because perhaps they've done this in the past, but there's a result in the present. The result is, well, now that study is not in the journal, or now those researchers have to defend their study. Now the researchers have to publish a new study because of this. So there's some results in the present. Several researchers have challenged the findings of the original study. Yeah, brought some uncertainty. You're openly saying that's not right. That's not correct. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't think that. So I think it would be stronger than uncertainty. Okay, just think of the word challenge from a sports perspective. If one, let's say there are two boxers and they challenge each other, it means they're going to fight each other to see who the winner is. So that's why it's stronger than just uncertainty. The researchers are saying those findings are incorrect. We disagree with those findings. Yeah, pushback is a good word choice. Contrary to popular belief that climate change doesn't exist, heat waves are increasing. Yeah, heat waves are increasing. Now, the last decade, if you want to include that, it means it started in the past and continues until now. So you would just have to change your verb tense. Heat waves have increased the last decade or have been increasing the last decade, but very nice. Excellent job. Oh, yeah, Julia, you can definitely combine contrary to popular belief with not necessarily. Not necessarily. And you might give some attitude, not necessarily. Contrary to popular belief, higher education does not necessarily guarantee our career success. You don't need the in front of higher education. You would just view it as an uncountable, just higher education. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Opposed is a good word choice because it's very strong. Opposed. Several researchers opposed. I would put it in the present perfect because it shows that connection to the present. Have opposed the findings of the original study. Very nice. Let's go on to presenting evidence and reasoning. The evidence suggests. that regular exercise can improve mental health. So maybe you want to provide some advice to a friend or a family member, but you know that if you just say to that friend, I think you should exercise more, your friend just might ignore you or might not take it seriously, or you might get in a fight with each other because of that. But if you say to that friend, the evidence suggests that regular exercise can improve mental health, well, then maybe your friend, family member, or colleague will pay more attention to it because it's not you, it's evidence. So, evidence in the sense of research findings, data, statistics, for example. Love you right back. Thank you so much. Oh, this is a powerful one going back to challenge. The suspect challenged the verdict in Supreme Court. Yeah. So the verdict is you're guilty. And then the lawyer or the suspect challenges that and provides more evidence to say why, no, I'm not guilty. Very nice example. Yeah, you could use according to the evidence. Okay, if you use according to the evidence, that's a phrase. And that complete phrase introduces the sentence. The sentence is regular exercise can improve mental health. So you would say, according to the evidence, regular exercise can improve mental health. Absolutely. Yeah, and you can also use research suggests, history suggests. Sure, absolutely. Let's keep going. Recent surveys indicate that customer expectations are changing rapidly. Indicate is a more formal way of simply saying show. Recent surveys show. So, show in the sense that you see a chart and 80% of the customers voted for this one option. So, you see it. So, the survey shows, the survey says, indicate is a more advanced way. Recent surveys indicate that customer expectations are changing rapidly. Yeah, rapidly means quickly. Exactly. Oh, yes, there are many excellent sentences. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Let's keep going. This is a great one. We need to account for all possible risks before making a final decision. This is the one I can't remember if I have consider in this lesson, but this is one of them that you could use consider. We need to consider all possible risks before making a final decision. So it means you have these risks. Maybe it will be expensive, maybe it will be time consuming, maybe the results are not guaranteed. So you need to account for. So when you're deciding yes or no, you have to review that information. You have to consider that information. So if it's helpful for you to mean consider, to I understand consider, that's a good synonym. Account for, consider. So for example, if you're if you're going to the airport and your flight leaves at 7 p.m., you need to account for traffic. Okay? Account for traffic. You need to consider traffic because if you need to get to the airport at 5 or 6 for your 7 o'clock flight, well, then you will be in rush hour traffic. So when you're deciding how early to leave or when to leave, you need to account for traffic. You need to consider traffic. Yes, account is a verb. So if you say, we're going to leave at 2:15 p.m. for the airport. And then your friend says, why 2:15? That seems so early. Well, we accounted for traffic. So that would be in the past simple. I'm so glad you enjoyed the teaching style. I appreciate that. No worries about being late. And yeah, show this lesson some love. Thank you. Okay, so this is a great one. Julia, the evidence suggests that drinking 2 liters of water on a daily basis will keep us fit. Very nice. And it sounds, maybe I will consider this more because I don't know much about Julia. I don't know much about her background. But if there's evidence, it sounds stronger. Let's keep going. Oh, our next one. It's difficult to draw a conclusion without examining all the available facts. So here, draw is a common alternative for make a conclusion. Now, you make a conclusion. That's the collocation. That just means that there are certain words that go together. Just like you make a decision, you make a conclusion. Now, a conclusion is the noun. You can also use it as a verb. Conclude is the verb. And this is very common in formal speeches. At the end of a formal presentation or speech, you might say, to conclude, I recommend that we reduce the work week to 30 hours. So to conclude, very commonly done in a more formal presentation. Now here, it's difficult to draw a conclusion, to make a conclusion without is a preposition, without examining all the available facts. Yeah, come to a conclusion is very common as well. It's often common in question form. For example, how did you come to that conclusion? Or in statement form, it might be, before I answer your question, let me share how I came to this conclusion. So, came to a conclusion in the sense of how I arrived, how I got here, because your conclusion is your recommendation or your opinion. And you want to share, well, first I analyzed the research, then I talked to all the participants individually. And then I reviewed the data from the last 10 years, and that's how I came to this conclusion. So you're providing the work that you did to form that conclusion. Now, it could be in a more everyday context as well. It could be, well, I came to that conclusion because I've been repeating all the phrases I learn and it's helped me remember them. So that's how I came to the conclusion that it's important to repeat everything you learn. So it doesn't have to be some formal academic study. You can use this in an everyday context as well. Well, bring to a conclusion means to end something. So in a formal presentation, you might say, you might have a slide and say, well, this brings us to a conclusion. So it depends on context. Context, it can mean to end. So now that we've reviewed all the data, that brings us to a conclusion. So we can end, or it means that you've arrived at your conclusion. So possible, Mirik, but there are different interpretations. Context will always make it obvious. Okay, let's keep going. Based on. This is a very important one. Based on something. Based on the data we collected, the new strategy appears to be effective. So, based on, you're saying this is the reason why we collected data and we're reviewing it. And this is why we're saying the strategy appears to be effective because we reviewed the data. So, based on, based on. Well, I don't think we'll get to discussing different sides of an issue because we are out of time, but we will save that one for a future lesson. So remember, everyone, you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can find the link in the description or go to my website and you will see it right there. And also remember, if you want to keep improving your English, if you want to add natural expressions to your vocabulary, if you want me as your personal coach, you can get that in the Finally Fluent Academy. You can find the link in the description, or you can also just go to my website and no, I don't want to leave. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. But I'll be back with another lesson very soon. And you're very welcome. Thank you for participating. And that brings us to the conclusion of our lesson. So hopefully you enjoyed it and put yes, yes, yes in the comments if you did. And yes, press the like button. Absolutely. You have an excellent day as well. Bye. See you soon. I know it did go very fast. Yes, it's the end. You're very welcome. All right, everyone. Have an awesome, awesome day. Bye.